Good afternoon. Welcome to Flint Talk Radio. I'm Sam Jahari.
And I'm Scott Macy.
We have Scott today again. He's from St. John's Providence, Brighton Hospital. And glad to have you back, Scott.
Thanks, Sam.
We are Community Parent. Community Parent was formed, as you know, after I lost my daughter to an overdose of heroin. Then 2 days later, a friend of hers also lost her life to heroin overdose, and then Community Parent was formed. And my daughter passed Valentine's Day 2011, and in the 3 years, what we did, Community Parent, we got with the Genesee County Sheriff's Department, and we started this program called Chasing the Dragon. Chasing the Dragon, it's the euphoria or the high that you get from the first time of that first hit that you get from heroin, and you're always chasing that high. Now, why is there such a rise in heroin overdoses and heroin in itself? 80% of heroin, it starts with prescription drugs. And our doctors just, I'm not knocking doctors down or whatever, but they just feel that a pill is just going to take care of all our problems. As you go into a doctor, they have a little sheet hanging on the wall, and it's, where's your pain level? We are so concerned with everybody's pain. We're going to get little pains day in, day out, but they just feel that a pill is going to get us through the hump, which it really, 10% of us, we end up with this problem called addiction. And addiction is a brain disease. Is that right?
Yep.
Is that the best way to describe it?
Just to kind of highlight what you've already kind of talked about from a standpoint of kind of identifying it as a gateway. When we talk about prescription medication, our society and how we treat pain. Are we any different than any other country in the world?
No.
But we represent 4.6% of the world's population, but we consume 99% of the world's hydrocodone. We consume 80% of the world's opiates. And you just have to ask yourself. And it goes back. If you look at what the AMA, the American Medical Association, did back in the early '90s when they said, "Hey, we're not treating pain properly," and there was a concerted effort to treat it more pharmaceutically, and you just saw things just take off exponentially. Now we have the fifth element, what I call the fifth element. When you go to the doctors, they take your blood pressure, they take your temperature, they do all these standard tests, and then one of them is they have you look at a chart with smiley faces to frowny faces and ask you what's your
pain level at. Yeah. Right, 1 through 10.
Yeah.
I was listening to Dr. Gupta on CNN, and he said what happened was all these opiates and these pain pills, they've always been available. They were actually used, to help people die. They were used for cancer patients and people that were
end of the life
on our way out.
Yep.
Exactly. Until I think what happened in the 1990s, the drug companies says, "Oh man, we're missing out on a lot of money here," and they started going after this very heavy, and that's why we see such a rise, in the opiates and the pain pills and stuff. But see, the whole thing is, when people are dying, we didn't really understand the long-term effect of these pain pills, and now we're seeing it. This is what happens is, for 10% of us, as we start with the pain pills or alcohol or weed or whatever, we, the 10% that have this brain disease, we become addicted to the pain pills, the weed, or the alcohol, or whatever it is. But what happens is, as doctors give us this for pain, or they give us the medicine or the medication, the 10% of us, it's playing Russian roulette. And we become addicted to this, and all of a sudden, as doctors find out we're addicts, they pretty much close the door on us.
Well, look what you say. When they find out, they do no assessment on the upfront. I mean, they're just not trained properly right now. And we as a society, when you look at the numbers and the way we treat pain, and then you compound it by the number of people that are in recovery from addiction and that are active in addiction, systemically, it affects every aspect of our society. And for the last 11 years, we've seen an increase in the death from prescription medication. For the last 11 years, we've seen a continued increase. Right now, just from painkillers. Right now, this past year, it was 16,500 deaths a year. That equates to about 45 people a day. And then you take all pharmaceuticals, it's over 116 people a day. It's 117,000 a year, and it's been increasing for the last, like I say, 11 years. Then now we have this issue too. The baby boomers. They're starting to age. Our aging population in this country is going to double. The number of people above the age of 60 is going to double by 2020. And if you look at the average number of prescriptions for a person over 60 in this country is on average over 2. 70% of them have over 2 prescriptions. 60% of those have over 7 prescriptions.
Isn't that a trip?
No.
Here's the thing, I came across something from somebody that started on pills to lower their blood pressure. All of a sudden, not lower their cholesterol. To lower their cholesterol, all of a sudden they were on 5 different medications from the side effects from the first pill.
Yeah.
So now instead of just the one, it's kind of a funny situation, but really it's not. The whole thing is these pharmaceutical companies, they're not out to treat anybody. It's about their bottom line and making money.
Well, it's about creating customers.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
That's what they're all about. And you bring up this, here we're treating somebody for the effects of another drug. And, I do, there is some new technology that's being developed and being pushed because, like you say, these doctors will continue to prescribe medication to see which one works. So you're actually acting as a guinea pig, for the first few times you're trying to see what one's going to work for you. And the thing is now with technology, we can do some genetic testing to see what kind of metabolism you have that'll work with a drug that might be prescribed to you. So we up front are doing a little bit better at assessing what is going to, because each of us our bodies are individual. They're unique. So the drug's not going to metabolize the same way for you.
Exactly. What might work for me might not work for somebody else. Correct.
So we've identified, technology's changing that we'll be able to do some things there and address it. But no, we are just a medically induced society.
It's funny. I remember as a little boy in the early '70s, I was watching TV, and a doctor from California comes on the TV and he says, "I discovered a cure for cancer," and all of a sudden the TV went snow. They don't want no cures. What I find is there's no money in curing. The money is in keep giving them pills because you say as we get 60 to 70 years old, where the average is like 2 pills, and that's the whole thing is it seems like when you get on a medication, you have to take it forever. No one is getting cured. It just
well, we're not.
That's that residual income for the drug companies.
Yeah. Well, when you're being prescribed, when you're seeing a doctor and you're complaining, and each subsequent visit is a progression, it's a progression in the number of pills and the number of diagnoses you're going to get.
Exactly.
Because the thing is, you've never taken care of the root issue, and it continues to manifest itself. Because when you know what you brought up about, you know, we're not addressing things from to cure something,
Exactly.
mostly from pain. You know, when you start taking pain medication, there's no long-term view. We're not playing the, like what I like to say, we're not playing the tape through. Okay, what are we trying to address?
Just cover the symptoms.
We're not.
That's all we're doing.
We're covering the symptoms, but we're manifesting into
Other problems.
even worse problems.
Exactly.
The pain, you start building a tolerance. Now you're expressing different issues. You know, if you're addressing pain in the 3 months down the road when you go visit the doctor again, now you're getting acclimated to this new lifestyle, taking this medication. It's keeping you on the couch. You know, now you got anxiety and depression. So what happens? You know, now you're on some type of depression medication or anxiety medication.
Exactly. I have someone that lives in the neighborhood. I've known him for a long, long time. He had something happen to him in his life that that he just got so depressed. Now he's on 5, 6 different medications, and you know, as I'm talking to him, I ran into him at Walmart the other day, and I'm talking to him, and you could see he's got a cotton mouth. He, you know, is constantly licking his lips and stuff, and you could tell he's very highly medicated. You know, and as we're talking, you know, he says, you know, I function pretty good throughout the day and stuff, but at night I have these bad dreams and stuff like that. But that's what I think with the one medication that, you know, I know from when I went through, you know, the major depression after my daughter died, you know, they got me on 5 different medications within 4 months, and it's like, you're just loopy, you know, you're tired, you're depressed, nothing has really changed, but they call that functioning. How is that functioning, you know? Just waiting to take the next pill.
Yeah, we're not even talking about, you know, the treatment and what it's supposed to accomplish. Because there, you know, when you're taking medication, there really isn't an end result that we're looking for. We're just trying to maintain you.
Yeah, exactly.
And then a lot of times it's eliciting more and more issues.
Yeah. Now, is it true that when, you know, these 10% that have this brain disease, there's usually a mental health illness that goes along with it, isn't it?
Well, I mean, you know, well, in recovery, we always, talk about behavioral health issues. I mean, a lot of times, you know, we talk about PAWS, post-acute withdrawal, like if someone goes into recovery and is addressing an addiction, there's a lot of systemic aspects in behaviorally. I mean, there could be a lot of depression. We saw that, you know, kind of with what was happening with Robin Williams. But, you know, a lot of that was probably latent for a while. That manifested itself after a while that he, you know, grew up with. But I know looking at a lot of what we call, you know, psychosocials, what we do for our patients in the inpatient setting is because of the genetic aspect of addiction. You know, we know, depending on, you know, what report you read, you know, 1 in 6 is going to become addicted. Now that's all based on, you know, the teenage years and you know, and experimenting with drugs and, you know, I get so upset sometimes at the argument, you know, about marijuana. Well, it doesn't kill you. Well, if that's the measure that we have to use to say if it's safe or if it's, you know, something that a drug that we can live with, you have to look at it beyond that. I mean, me being an addict, I mean, I didn't get clean until I was 42, and I started when I was 14, and I was predisposed with addiction. I was off to the races, and, you know, the marijuana was, you know, the start of mine. Now, it's not going to affect everybody the same way, obviously,
Sure.
but we know 1 in 6 are going to be, mostly during this teenage years, are going to become addicted. And
You know,
that can be seen, because it's a brain disease, it makes it even harder because, when you look at the symptoms of addiction, the symptoms aren't like your diabetes or hypertension when you can check your blood sugar or check your pulse rate or blood pressure. It's a brain disease, so it might manifest itself in.
so how much? What's the percentage that it's hereditary? We get this from our.
Well, in reports just over a decade ago, basically 80-20, 80% of it was of addiction was was genetic, 20% was environmental. But things have changed in our society so quickly. Exponentially. Our society and our lifestyles are changing. You just look at, we don't have many parents that are still at home. Everybody's working. We don't have, family dinners anymore. We communicate electronically. Things have changed so dramatically, but so the social environment has now taken a bigger chunk. So now, when you're looking at, the aspect of genetics or environment and its impact on addiction, depending on where you report, you're 60-40. It's changing. And in the environmental impact. When we look at our kids, just this beginning school year, just down in the Detroit area, and we just had 6 overdose at one school district within a week of each other. So when these kids go back to school, it's a big place for where a lot of kids, get their information, or the social norming starts taking effect, and the kids, just start feeding off each other, and it's like a mass mentality where you're going to start seeing a lot of this manifest itself in the use in these areas. So we're starting to see the issues with the synthetic drugs take effect again. And it's really revolves around the beginning of school years. It's an interesting aspect of how that whole peer pressure and the peer choices we make kind of push this agenda, and that speaks to the whole social aspect.
Exactly. I did the Dr. Nandi show a couple months ago, and one of they had this kid on. I think she was 16, 17 years old. But anyways, she struggled with marijuana use, and she had went to rehab, got clean, and got. I believe she went to a different school, if I recall right. But anyways, she thought the peer pressure and her friends, they got her going again. And the big thing I had to say about that is those people are not your friends. Anybody that pushes you, there's a saying, misery loves company, because people that are hooked on any drug, they're miserable. They are just so miserable that they don't know how to get themselves clean. Another thing too is they're humiliated because the drug is making them do things that they don't want to do. I used to tell my daughter, I said, you when you look in the mirror, you don't recognize that person, because I didn't recognize my daughter anymore. Drugs will make you lie, steal, cheat, even commit murder. That's how strong addiction is. And hopefully, we took on this epidemic. I took on this epidemic. I could not save my child, and I just hope that from somebody hearing us, or at the schools or on the radio here, we can save somebody's life. It's an initiative that only you can diagnose yourself, that you have this problem and that you want to get help. Drugs, this war on drugs started in the early 70s with President Nixon, and the whole thing is, I myself, I vote more Republican than anything, and I'm not afraid to, jump out. But I do look at the individual that's running for office. But our Republican friends, or my Republican friends, they find that every time there's a problem, we just want to keep adding more time in prisons. And that's all we have is more and more prisons out there. And there's a saying that you keep doing the same thing with the same results, maybe it's time to make a change. In our prisons, I say 80% are drug related or there's a mental health issue. And nobody's getting rehabilitated. It would cost us less as a society to have hospitals where these people can go and actually get treatment than to just put them in a cell and house them. We need to make some changes as a society. We need to have some compassion. We're fed this crap. If these are sickness, then why aren't we treating them? We treat them like criminals because they end up like criminals because they need their medicine.
Yeah.
That's all they think. They need their medicine. We as a society, we turn our backs onto these people. Look, hate the addiction. Don't hate the addict because the addict is sick. And that's the whole thing is we're sick because we're an addict, but because of this epidemic and because of how people perceive us, we're afraid to open our mouth and say, I have a problem. I'm sick. I'm an addict.
Yeah. Well, and then, just going back, to when you look at, we became very punitive, and it all started pretty much right around the Nixon administration. We became very, very punitive on how we addressed addiction, how we addressed drug use, and it kept on escalating, through the Reagan years, Bush years, just became just say no. And our prison population right now, there's not a country we lead the world in imprisoned citizens. The United States does. And on top of it, what do? We go and we start privatizing our prisons on top of it. So now you got the monetary effect. And one of the leading states for imprisoning their citizens is Louisiana. That was one of the first states to go and privatize their jails. But I can tell you, last year going into a prison, not the jails, they go into the jails quite regularly, but going into the prison, I can tell you that the mental illness in our prisons is, it's sad. I mean, sad to see. And, putting the money towards, treating, because a lot of times, these inmates are going to get out, and how do we expect them to function in our society again,
Well, that's why
when they haven't
end
addressed
up
the
right
issue?
back in there because they don't know how to live in society.
And the recidivism rate is so high because of that. And we have the opportunity. I mean, what's it cost? I forgot what the cost. I mean, it's like $36,000 a year to hold somebody in our prison system. You could take a fraction of that and start treating them, and mostly, from that regard. I mean, it's a broad issue, but that's you know. Well, yeah. but sometimes that's the motivating factor to get someone into treatment. And it's unfortunate because you got such a broad way to paint this issue. But when I'm looking at some, as a society, we look at addiction. We come down on it. We don't look at it the same way we look at other chronic illnesses. So there needs to be some motivation to get people the help that they need. And sometimes, a lot of times it's getting in the judicial, it's finding your way into the judicial system. It's finding yourself being expelled from the schools. I mean, I just talked to 3 different superintendents, in the last week, and we don't have a drug problem. We don't have a drug problem, but they just expelled 72 students last year. So they kicked them down the street now, so they don't have the problem anymore.
Be also a husband, drug counselor, sexual therapist, family counselor, along with his youth. I mean, it's too many.
Well, here we're asking our teachers in some states now they're going to be carrying guns. So,
Well, yeah, I have a relative. I mean, I have an ex-wife who teaches health in our local school district, and I look at the curriculum she teaches, and if they can't find time to teach one of the most systemic issues in our society and one of the biggest issues among our most vulnerable at that age group, something's wrong.
well, let's see,
Because if they could start teaching kids on how to put a condom on, they have time to teach them about the ills of drug use.
that's what I find, Scott, is they don't want drug conversation. They don't want the conversation. They want you to hush. It's not happening.
Yeah.
But they know it's happening, but they want to keep it on the low side. Oh, we're not going to bring this up. How do you tackle something, or how do you get rid of something, or how do you help something if you want to keep it on the down low and you don't want to speak about it? It starts with conversation.
And that leads to a reactive society,
Exactly.
not a proactive society, and that's what's happened.
You know what? And that's what I find is everybody, all families that go through this addiction, they're so fed up with the system because instead of helping matters, we get more grief from it. Look, the idea of this show is to get people talking. The idea of Community Parent is to see problems and open up that conversation. And that's what I'm hoping. I would love it if you guys would call in and give us your opinions, what you think about this. You think that there's no addicts amongst our police? You think there's no addicts amongst our doctors? You don't think there's judges that are addicts? They just know how to, teachers, any kind of profession. Any kind of profession.
There's no discrimination amongst
Exactly. And that's what, it's happening everywhere, but everybody wants to keep it hush.
Well, and that's the thing, I kind of, I don't know the word for it, but, I worked, for the big three. I had a nice job, nice cushy job, white collar, and but it allowed me to kind of meld in and I kind of was able to convince myself I'm a functioning addict. There's no such thing as a functioning addict, but it just and it eventually manifested itself. I mean, I lost my job, lost quite a few jobs. I mean, before the age of 40, I had 17 different jobs. And I forgot what the average number. And in our society, we don't have longevity in the jobs we do. But I guess in addressing that, now I work and I have a sense of purpose. I work in addiction. I'm surrounded by addiction 24/7. With people, and sometimes I lose sight that you know, that of these stigmas and why we have these stigmas, and you know, it's unfortunate, but you know, it's the way our society is. You know, because there are some people that we, you know, that come in to our facility. They have to come under you know, pseudonyms, you know, or just, you know, what's the word I'm looking for? But they can't come under their own name.
They come in undercover.
Yeah, they're coming undercover, and you know, how do you, you know, how can you equate that and help them, you know, understand that? But you know,
Well, that's the stigmas that we need to break through. And the only way we can do that is by conversation, by, you know, talking about it. And hush hush is not going to do anything for us as a society. We need to get rid of this epidemic. And the only way that can happen is by everybody coming aboard and actually seeing this for what it is.
yeah,
You know, 1 of 10 of us is a walking addict. You know, and that's just the whole thing is 1 out of 10, but everybody's affected. The whole community, the nation is affected. That means everybody.
yeah, and you know, and the thing is, I just read this the other day, and it kind of made sense. Hopefully, I can try to kind of express it. But you know, when you're talking about addiction, everybody looks at you know, addiction from the point of view that it gets to a certain point and then you're an addict. Well, they equated it to the flu. Okay, that's like saying when you get to the point of having the flu to where you have to be hospitalized, that's the flu. It's not, you know, knowing the symptoms well before when, you know, you're starting to feel bad, and you know, and you have preventative measures to take. Addiction is just, you know, if you can put it in the same kind of context, and hopefully you can follow what I was kind of trying to say here. But it's, you know, addiction, you know, I think is stigmatized by thinking that you got to go through all these things have to happen before, you know, you're an addict. Well, you know, if I can equate it to the flu, you know.
Exactly. I think what happens is we have these addicts, like you thought you had it under control. Okay, really you don't have it under control. What it is as long as you're taking your medicine, you're okay. You know, you're functioning. But the whole thing is where it really hits home is when you don't have the medicine and you're going crazy. And that's where the addiction really shows itself.
But yeah, do we have to get to that point?
No, I understand, but I'm just saying.
Well, yeah, I mean,
You know,
like during my addiction,
you know, alcoholics, as long as you're drinking, you're okay. I mean,
yeah.
I smell it on your breath. I see you waddling or whatever. I can tell you're drunk, okay? But for you, as long as I'm having my drink, I'm okay.
Oh yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
That takes those inhibitions down. Whatever you know, the crutches that you know, if you're trying to, you know, hide some feelings, be able to socialize better. When it is needed to function, when you can't function yourself, when you can't, well, you know, I mean, I'm sorry, you know, being, you know, a person in AA, you know, that, you know, we have so many of these little sayings, but if you know, you live in life on life's terms. I mean, that's what it's about. And I think, you know, we got to, I mean, if you just look at the DSM-5 just came out, it's a diagnostic statistical manual that our doctors and therapists use to diagnose you. And I use this as an example all the time because when it first came out, I think at 58 or 57, it's a little thin little book. Okay, we're on the 5th edition, and the book is about that thick. Okay, and on top of it, every time it comes out quicker and quicker and quicker. You know, between the first and second edition, it was like 17 years. I think the most recent edition, there was roughly 4 years between.
Oh yeah,
okay.
yeah. Okay.
Now we gotta.
They covered that at the Opiate conference.
Yeah, right.
Okay, yes. All right. I really didn't understand what they were talking about because it was new to me.
But we got a diagnosis for everything.
Exactly.
And what comes along with the diagnosis? A pill.
A pill, exactly. Ladies and gentlemen, the whole thing is, you know, when my daughter was going through this, you know, at first it was our family doctor. He sends me a letter. He says, after a month, your daughter cannot come and see me anymore. This is a healthcare professional that's supposed to be looking out for the welfare.
Threw his hands up.
He threw his hands up because
Didn't know
my
I
daughter was an addict.
Yep.
So if our healthcare professionals think this is choice, and it's in their hands that they are addicts, who do we turn to?
Yeah.
You told me there was 3 million doctors.
There's 1 million doctors.
Million doctors,
Million doctors in
and
this
less
country.
than 3,000 doctors are addiction specialists.
Yeah.
That's just crazy. That is crazy. Why is that? There's no money in it?
I think it's, there's a few, it'd be all hypothetical on my part, but when you look at, I'm part of a health system. We're one of the largest health systems in the state, and we have the largest residency program. So all these new emerging doctors or that are going through their training go through our residency program. Well, we're in this system. When I say Brighton, our facility is a addiction facility. And we have maybe a couple doctors come through and do their residency through addiction. It's ridiculous. It's not part of the curriculum. It's not even part of it. They're starting to identify and they're starting to push that agenda. Even in school, a pharmacist doesn't get much education on addiction. It's just not part of the curriculum, and I have no idea why. But it is. It's been identified, and they're looking at. I don't have the statistics on the top of my head, but I can tell you, most recent, it doesn't look good. From the standpoint of the percentage of doctors in residency and training that get any exposure to addiction, it's less than 60%.
Wow, that's crazy. Anyway, the family doctor, he closes the door on my daughter. So I'm thinking to myself, well, if a doctor thinks this is choice, this is what I was thinking, And one time, my daughter was so drugged up, they took her to in front of the magistrate, and the magistrate, before he wants to send her to the detention center, he feels, well, send her to the hospital. Let's make sure she's okay. So she gets to emergency, and this doctor just yelling at my daughter. I'm embarrassed. See, you're doing this to yourself. This is what I'm thinking to her. This is what I'm saying to her. It's like, because this guy's, this girl's educated. She's a healthcare professional. Okay, so it's choice. But really, after my daughter died, that I really got educated in this addiction field. Everything that's on TV or these opiate conferences, that opened my eyes to the light. It opened up my eyes to a lot of things besides addiction too. But this stigma needs to go away before we can really treat and help our loved ones. This stigma really needs to go away, that we can help our community, our nation, our people. The whole thing is, a lot of times with people with privilege, they have enough money that it doesn't come out on the surface. But it's happening in their homes. It's happening in every home. It doesn't matter if you got money or if you don't have money or what race you are or wherever. Okay? And it's not just our nation. It's happening all over the world. They don't see it as much because I don't know if they just don't have the money to go to the doctor so he can give them a prescription or whatever, or they don't start that way. But as a nation, this is the best country in the world, and we need to open our eyes and actually have some compassion, and let's work on treatment. Let's get rid of the stigma, because it's not people that's in the gutter that this is happening to. These are everyday people, very good people. You know,
Well, I
my,
mean, just the heroin issue, and we can, without a doubt, there's no argument. If we look at where we are with the heroin, it's it's an epidemic. I mean, plain and simple, it's an epidemic, and where we are with it, and the precursors that led to it, squarely, it's the your prescription medication. And squarely right now, the heroin issue is in our suburbs. It's amongst our 18 to 25-year-old kids. That's where it's at right now. Okay, in every aspect.
that's heroin,
of that
ladies
issue.
and gentlemen. Okay, but 80% of heroin users start with prescription drugs. The number one drug amongst 12-year-olds is what's in your medicine cabinet. This is what they're looking for the high. So we need to do something different. We really need to bring this out in the open and really have a fight against this epidemic, because it's definitely not going away.
Yeah, and it's when you're talking about 80% is driven by the prescription medication. I mean, 70% of our kids are getting it from someone they know. They're getting it out of the medicine cabinet. They're getting it from a parent. They're getting it from a family member, and we act as the doctor. I mean, and because the thing is, we have too many pills that we're not disposing of, that we're keeping. How many times have you finished what you've taken and you got leftovers and you're just keeping them in your medicine cabinet? That's not where they belong. They were written for you. They were written for the individual that then names on that bottle, and it's against the law to give that controlled substance to anybody other than the prescribed. And it just comes to ignorance that we have towards it, because we feel it's safe because it was prescribed by a doctor. But if you look at the way the medication is prescribed, I mean, just recently, with OxyContin, back in 2011, it was reformulated because it was so easy to make it water soluble, to inject. It was very easy to crush, to snort, and it was being misused. I can tell you, in southeastern Michigan, amongst Blue Cross patients, and looking at their prescribing rates amongst their members, when that drug was reformulated, the prescriptions amongst that OxyContin dropped 40%. 40%, and that 40% indicated that 40% of the drug use in southeastern Michigan was for non-medical purpose, for getting high. Okay, and now what we do, so we've learned our lesson. Now we're fighting to reschedule Vicodin from a Schedule 3 to a Schedule 2, which is going to make it harder to get a prescription refilled. You'd have to come back to the doctor after 90. You can't get it past 90 days of prescription. But I was reading this study about pain and treating pain, and mostly, like a majority of the pain that people report does not last longer than 8 days. Does not last longer than 8 days. So what the hell are we sending someone home with a 90-day prescription? Okay, and then on top of it, these 15, 16-year-old kids are getting their teeth, their wisdom teeth extracted, and they got 30, 40-day prescription.
Ladies and gentlemen, I came across an article a couple days ago. A doctor, a cancer doctor, he is in the court and he pleaded guilty for diagnosing people with cancer so he can sell his chemotherapy medicine, because there's so much money in the treatments. Okay,
They wanted to buy a castle in Lebanon.
This is where, as a people, we need to open up our eyes. Look, you can't say, oh, this is happening down the road, it doesn't affect me. Everything affects all of us. That's where we all need to be aboard. It's a matter of greed. It's about the money. I don't care if it's the drug companies or if it's the doctors. That doesn't mean they're all bad, guys. Okay? I'm not saying that. But I'm saying that certain percentage, that's what it's all about.
Ask questions.
It's a time we wake up, ask questions, get second opinions, third opinions. This is your body. This is your life. This is your family. And that's what it's all about. Well, look, now we have our first case of Ebola right here in the U.S. Somebody came from Liberia or whatever and brought it with them. That's how it all starts, All of a sudden, we have a massive thing going on right here. Hopefully, we can get this thing put to bed. Sickness doesn't matter what form, all these people in Liberia and in these areas, how many people they lost to this Ebola. We're losing a lot more people, more than cancer, more than diabetes, to addiction. Addiction. And we got our eyes closed. And this is happening in somebody else's neighborhood. Bullshit. It's happening in your neighborhood. It's happening in every neighborhood. And we need to get involved. Because one hand can't clap by itself. We need everybody to come aboard and join the fight of this epidemic. Because together we can make a difference.
Yeah, and just, along the lines of, how this, the number of prescriptions that are out there. I mean, I'm looking at a stat. Kids under the age of 6 represent 40% of all emergency room visits from poisoning, from so all.
That they picked up a pill.
Yeah, because it was. I mean, we're just exposed. It's just all over. I mean, what you're starting to see out of Colorado with the marijuana issue is the systemic aspect on our youth. I come from the treatment provider's background, and I see it every day. I'm an ex-addict, and I know the role marijuana played in the progression of my disease and the significant role it played. And we have to, and that was back in the late 70s, early 80s when marijuana wasn't even close to the potency it is now, and it wasn't used in so many different ways than it is now. I mean, it's 30 to 40% THC concentrate. When I was using it, it was like 4%. But the thing is, these drugs, our society, it exposes everybody, and our children are the ones that are most vulnerable, and the ones that they don't have a say in it, but they're being affected, and that's the scary part.
You know what? I'm not an advocate for marijuana, but I've seen a lot of the qualities or what marijuana can do for you, and as a muscle relaxer or something for analgesic, or a lot of different things that the treatment that you can get from the treatment of marijuana. And I'm not an advocate for marijuana, but the whole thing is, I think they put it as the gateway drug or whatever. Where did we get these from? From the drug companies, because they're worried about selling their shit and they don't want nobody else competing with them. And I think if they could make money on it in their own ways, they'd be all aboard. The whole thing is, listen, no drug is good drug, okay? I'm not saying that. But I'm saying that, here's a pain pill, here's marijuana that can help with your pain, but, oh no, this is against the law, okay? This is a what they have it as the bad drugs, it was like on the 2 scale or whatever.
Oh, the scheduled drugs?
Scheduled drugs.
Yeah,
right?
marijuana is Schedule 1.
Schedule 1. Was that like the top?
Yeah, it's illicit. There's no, basically, the way the schedules work, the DEA is Schedule 1 through 5. And the highest is Schedule 1, which is illicit, which means no medical benefit, and it's got the highest propensity for addiction.
That's just crazy.
Yeah.
That's just crazy. But hey, again, I'm not saying one drug is better than the other. It's just I believe. Look, I don't have no faith in the DEA. I don't have no faith in our government. I don't have no faith in our doctors. Because I've seen that they're driven by money and they're not really driven by what's good for society. And I don't care. Um, I just see so much corruption in it, and it's just driven by money.
Well, and
It's
that's the
whoever's
thing.
putting money
Yeah.
in. These companies, they got so
Yeah.
much money that they buy their way to get whatever they need to get across.
Yeah, and you're going to see, mostly like with the marijuana issue right now. We go through, in this country. You can go back to, the Civil War and to present time, and just look at our liberal and conservative views on drug use. Okay,
I
and
think the big thing is
we're in the most liberal periods of time right now. You can kind of equate prohibition as one of the most conservative times, but we're in one of the most liberal times right now. We have decriminalization. We have 23 states with medical marijuana laws, and we have another 2 states with recreational use of marijuana, and then we have like 11 states with a referendum on their coming up on their elections. So we're in one of the most liberal phases. But now, if you look at the push of marijuana is big business. It's going to become big business. You have a number of public companies now that are traded on the stock exchange. You have them lobbying now, so money is going into the pockets of these politicians. And a lot of these politicians, which not too many years ago were sending the money back, they're keeping it. So you're going to start seeing, a big push. And marijuana is and plus our kids, they're going to be voters. They're going to be voters. And when you see the perception of risk continue to fall, and the message that they're not getting it from educated people. They're getting it from their peers. They are going to be voters. They're going to be voters very soon.
I think it's the same thing with the prohibition. When people are making their own alcohol, they figured, well, what the hell? Let's just legalize this and put some taxes on it, and But I believe this is the gateway to all the drugs is the alcohol. But we legalized it. Now, something that somebody can grow in their yard, you can't shut it out. You can't shut it out. So the whole thing is, okay, it's going to be legalized. Let's put some money in the treatment and in the education of our children, so they can be educated. I think there's things that we can't do as a society. We can't stop something because there's so much money in it. Like you said, okay, they're putting enough money in politicians that it's going to pass. Just like that damn drug, the Zohydro. When you got enough, this is what I find, this is how things happen here in America, is whoever's got the most money will buy you the laws to get changed, to get whatever you want through your government. You put enough money in the politician's hand, he's going to go along with whatever you want. Nobody has a conscience anymore. It's not about what's right or wrong. It's how much money can I make, which is bull crap, but this is where we've come as a society.
Yes,
and the whole thing
success of an individual is based on their status, and that status is based on the money they make. It's all monetized. Everything that But the thing is, what we need to do is education. Hopefully we're smart enough that we're not going to snort Ajax or some
like it hasn't been done. It has been done.
But okay, you know the effects of that.
Exactly.
And that's the thing. We just need to educate. And if we can do, we're doing a pretty good job with the synthetic drug issue. But just 2 years, 2011. When we first measured its impact on our students through monitoring the future, we found that synthetic drug use, or specifically K2, synthetic marijuana, was the second illicit drug used. And that quickly it took effect. Now it's dropped, It's still the second highest used illicit drug amongst
Exactly.
our youth.
You know what?
But
And
we're
this is
educating them.
this is what I find though. As soon as this comes on the market, it gets slammed. It gets slammed hard. Who's backing it? You know, I think the drug
It's all-
companies and
you know,
those they'll put enough money.
We got to
Go after
put
these.
we got to put principle before profit, because where are you finding this stuff sold? Okay,
Mhm.
I mean, I can tell you, for example, when we were dealing with the issue, the synthetic issue, and I went to go do a talk down in Dearborn Heights, and I stopped at 13.
Party stores.
I was able to purchase it at 11 of the 13. When was the last time you walked into a party store or a gas station and said, "Hey, well, I only want to, the bag of chips is $1.50, but I'll give you 75 cents for it," or the gas is $3.29, I'll give you $2.99 a gallon. Well, I went into each one of those stores, was able to negotiate the price of that synthetic drug that they were selling as not for human consumption. They were selling as potpourri or glass cleaner or foot powder or plant food. They knew exactly what they had there. And for me to negotiate the price, what does that say about that person?
It's all about the money.
It's all about the money.
That's
Principle. We need to be a principled society. Principle, before profit.
well. Let me ask you something. You know, the whole thing is that
At the expense of our children.
we look at these people that we have like in offices or our leaders or the CEOs. We look at them like they're the shit. But really, that's where it is. I mean, I don't care if it's our president. I don't care if it's senators. I don't care if it's congressmen. I don't care if it's the police. I don't care who it is. You find corruption in all of them. And it's all money driven. It's all money driven. Exactly. That's what it is.
We all do that. We don't, we should all do that.
Exactly.
You know, I mean, no matter what they do, certainly we're suing, going to big companies.
Exactly. And if we do put them in prison, it's like they're going on vacation. You know,
Everything they gain, public service by the world, and they're going to like, everything should go.
we should bring back that stoning. You know, where we put people in front of everybody and everybody pick up a
Well,
stone
I mean,
and stone these people.
it's up to us. I mean, mostly from a standpoint of public officials. We're the sheep that put them there. I'm sorry. We're
Well, you know
the
what?
sheep that put
That's
them there.
that's the
And
whole
like,
thing.
for example, this last primary, I mean, I was dealing with 3 different politicians. Got very close to them over the issue of addiction. A few of them had it in their family. They were trying to address, and a couple of them wanted to do something about it. Not one of them during their in their platform or in their campaigning was ever brought up. And we, as individuals, as a society, as a community, we need to set their agendas.
Well, exactly. You know, that's like going into these schools and stuff when we have so much resistance, because people want to say that this is not happening. It's the same thing with these politicians, and they're afraid to open their mouth because the way people think of addicts or addiction is it's their choice. They choose this route instead of educating and every day there should be a show about this. Where we educate everybody that this is a sickness, and we're not dealing with it in the right way. We keep going round and round, and we're back at the same place. We're not getting anywhere. But this is just crazy. Anyways, we're running low on time here. It's been a great show, Scott. Thanks for coming
thank you,
today.
sir.
We appreciate having you here, and together we're going to make a difference, aren't we, Scott?
Yep. You're
We're
doing a great job,
this
Sam.
fight we picked up this. I picked up this fight after losing my daughter, and the whole thing is I can't bring her back, but hopefully I can save one of your child or your parent or your mother or father or whatever. Okay, and please join us in this fight because again, I say this all the time. One hand can't clap it by itself, but the more the more people we have come aboard, they can't shut us up at that point. the louder the voice, the more we're going to be heard, and we're going to get things done. Again, thanks for joining me today. Thank you for listening. Have a great afternoon. We're out of here.
Thank you.